Hey, welcome to Flannel Farms. My name is Brian. Last year, we did two rather life-altering events. One was we started a YouTube channel. The other thing we did was move out into the country, buy 15 acres, and start a homestead. And as many of you do, when you do something new, you scour YouTube looking for people who are doing it also. So this is a new segment to our channel where I interview people whose channels I have found and benefited from myself in my own journey. And we're gonna ask them some questions. What we want to know is A, what makes them successful homesteaders? And B, what makes them successful YouTubers? What tips or tricks might they have? So without further ado, on our very first inaugural episode, our very first guest.
Ladies and gentlemen, my first guest here on our new segment about gardening / homesteading and YouTube content creators is David the Good. David the Good has approximately 162,000 subscribers. It says you joined YouTube back in 2006. You are like 10 views away from 21 million views. You have the silver play button. You're also the husband of one wife, 10 children, award-winning gardener, author, international speaker and traveler, ex-expat, and probably the accomplishment you're most proud of, you're my brother. So naturally, how long have you been gardening?
I started gardening when I was 6. And dad tore out a little piece of the backyard and put in some landscape logs and then bought some dirt from Home Depot for me because I said, Dad, can I have a garden? He's like, I guess so, you know. So he set it up for me, and I went and bought some seeds and I started planting, and I killed stuff for a really, really long time, but I never stopped. Like every year I put gardens in. I actually have a journal somewhere that has pictures from when I was 8 or 9, all these little photographs of stuff from the garden, which at some point I have to scan it and
wow,
and
that's really cool.
Yes, I was sick.
What drew you into gardening?
It was the absolute insane magic of seeing beans sprout for the first time.
Beans,
beans, yeah. So before I was gonna get kicked out of school or made to repeat kindergarten because of bad behavior. I was a rough kid, you know, and you remember.
I still have the scars.
But we had there was a teacher, and she did this. Everybody got a little Dixie cup full of dirt and a bean to plant in it, and we planted beans in these little Dixie cups, and we got to take it home and stick it on the windowsill. And after 5 or 6 days, this little sprout comes out of the ground and it lifts its little head up and it turns green, and it opened up and the leaves came out, and I was just like, I never seen anything like that before. I mean, I thought those little pills that have a dinosaur inside, and you stick them in water and the pill melts and then it like blows up into this weird kind of grossly spongy dinosaur. It was like that, except alive. And it was very exciting. So
that's awesome.
That was the first thing I realized. Wow, you can just plant seeds and they grow. I never really thought much about seeds or growing things. And then that's when I started digging through the pantry and pulling out mom's dried beans and planting them. I planted popcorn and lima beans. Anything that looked like a seed got planted. And then older folks in the neighborhood, when they saw that I was interested in gardening, I would ask people about their gardens. What's that? What's that? What are you planting? What's that? And they would always give me cuttings and little plants. So I had this whole collection of plants that grew over the years, just because, when a kid is actually interested in something, it seems like a lot of adults are like, oh yeah, I know how to do that. Here, have some of this and have some of this. Just because it's so not a normal, it's not a normal thing. You're like, oh, they're a kid. So there's a lot of older folks that encouraged me along the years.
It's like when you tell somebody you like the Beatles or something, they're like, really? You like things I like too?
Right. And then they just torture you with boomer music for like ever. Right.
Just the Beatles. That was it. Just them.
And actually only one song. and I actually only like the Kylie Minogue cover of it. So
I was going to go with Taxman. So fast forward a few decades. What is your operation like now? What are your gardens like?
I've got a quarter acre plus a little bit more than a quarter acre that supplies, I would say it's all of our vegetables in season, but occasionally when we're out of season and the frosts have been bad and that sort of thing, and Rachel wants to make sauerkraut or that sort of thing, then we, she buys a vegetable. But we've got a quarter acre under cultivation, which is enough to provide us with vegetables. And then we have chickens. We have a couple of goats that are not producing anything yet because they're just old enough to be bred. They've got to be bred. Then they have to have kids, and then you can milk them. But they're two dairy goats. And right now they're kind of just clearing brush and being moved around the yard and generally wreaking havoc. But we are gardening on a rented property in Lower Alabama, and it's amazing. Almost everybody else's yard that I go to, they have better soil than this one. It was like the absolute worst piece of soil in the entire area. I was looking at a property the other day and I dig it out. It's brown clay sand loam. It's like you crush it in your hand and then it breaks apart pretty easily, but it's got enough clay to stick, and it smells rich, and there's thick grass all over the entire property, which tells you that there's got to be something in the soil. Right. Whereas the land that I'm on here, it's like the grass patches are little clumps, a half a foot apart sometimes. And it's, you can let the grass grow the entire year and all you get is thin, yellow, little brown tufts of grass that's trying to grow. You don't even have to mow it. I mean, it's, that's bad. Yeah, that's bad. So it's been absolutely perfect for us because, as writing gardening books, if you have perfect conditions, then people will say, well, I wish I had soil like that. I wish I had, a climate like that. It's like, I've got an absolutely schizophrenic climate that goes back and forth between 20s and 70s and 80s over the course of winter even. It's like this. And we get a huge amount of rain, but the rain doesn't come spread through the year in nice little things like this. It'll be like 3 or 4 weeks, no rain, and then 10 inches. Yeah, and tsunami. Maybe 2 weeks without rain, and then an entire week of rain where it rains and rains and rains. We might get 16 inches, 20 inches in a week. And so it comes in these really flooding events that turn the yard into a swamp. And then it dries up and it's dry 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 and it's dry. And then there's this huge event and there's hurricanes. And it's a perfect climate. If I can grow in this climate, I think it's a blessing from God, because if I can grow on this soil and this climate, it gives me a better place to demonstrate the methods that we're using than, I mean, when we were down in the islands, we had perfect volcanic soil and it was a perpetual spring. The weather was always between 73 degrees and about 89 degrees. It was just a perpetual spring, cool at night, nice breezes, good rainfall, and the best soil that I've ever gardened in. And you could grow everything. You could have a cocoa tree and with rows of cabbages growing underneath it. That's almost impossible. There's hardly any places where that happens. And I mean, you can grow this cool climate temperate vegetable beneath a absolutely 100% tropical plant that can't take temperatures below, say, 50 degrees without starting to be unhappy. And then I moved back here, and suddenly now it's real life again for people that are in the States. So we've got very difficult conditions, and people get kind of, I guess, encouraged seeing how the soil is changing and what we're actually pulling out of it, and seeing what I started with, which is like a wasteland.
And in some ways, it's almost like when you buy a house. If you buy a finished, completed house, it's all fun and exciting for the first 3 or 4 months, and then there's no challenge. There's nothing to work on. You're used to it. You buy a house with busted floors and bad whatever, and it's a nightmare. But when you get it done, there's that sense of accomplishment. So much more so than just, oops, I dropped seeds and now I have food. You had to like tear this from the land and the sweat of your brow and the whatever to make it produce anything, let alone good things. Like, it's hard to produce, like you said, grass won't grow. So good luck getting a vegetable that needs all these nutrients and, you know, or root plants or whatever.
I totally have to scratch my nose right now. So 1 second. Okay. Like, you can't scratch your nose on camera. It looks
there
terrible.
needs to be a scratch.
So just,
Maybe
yeah.
I was looking for my filter.
Wait a second. Scratch my nose. There we go. There we go. Oh, perfect.
Let me ask you a question.
Oh, there's.
Okay.
Yeah. In my book here.
Well, it's funny you mentioned survival gardening, because that was the
yeah.
You've been a bit of a prophet, if you will. I've have the benefit, for those of you that don't know, you know, I've been very close for very many years. I think since we started this journey on life in general. But I've seen over the past 20 years your track record in kind of calling things before they happen, whether it's been geopolitical, economical, you know, kind of whatever. So your website is thesurvivalgardener.com, is that right?
Right.
And that's the kind of the gist of what you've been doing. So it's cool that you're even like demonstrating these difficult conditions, because more people, I think, are being driven to do this type of thing. I mean, we've been homesteading now for about 6 months. We had a few gardens and a few backyard chickens and nothing serious, but you know, some of us think the writing's on the wall, and you've been saying that for years, not just the past couple years, or not, you know, pandemic or anything. So I think what you're doing is a good thing for a lot of people, because it has the potential, if people use information, to, I mean, not to get overly dramatic, but save their lives by knowing how to grow food.
Yeah, that's I started studying economics in the early 2000s, and it was the study of economics that really convinced me that we were headed into difficulty. The sheer amount of money printing that was going on, and I noticed it first in the Bush administration. And I was watching the State of the Union address, and he's talking about, and we're going to put 100 million towards such and such, and we've got $1 billion going towards, you know, education for this, and we're going to put this. And I'm going, wait a minute, I thought we were running a deficit. Where does this money come from? And I had already kind of had I had understood from the time I was a teenager that our currency was paper. Our currency was no longer gold and silver, because I was a coin collector. I liked old coins. And so at some point I realized that the value of silver got too high compared to the paper money, and they stopped using silver for our change. And so when I was a teenager, I had I would go out and I would buy silver dimes with some of the money that I was making working at the thrift store. And I would occasionally sell stuff on eBay, and then and if I had extra money, I would buy some silver dimes. And I understood that they had value that was holding, whereas the paper had money, it was not holding. And then I didn't realize exactly how bad it was and everything, I guess, until the early 2000s, where I started to really study it. Because the 90s were pretty awesome. Everything was still kind of kicking along. We had kind of the remnants of a working society. You know, we had an immoral president with problems, and you know, that sort of thing. But it wasn't like the system didn't seem quite so broken. When I watched The Matrix in 1999, that tech world was like shiny and sexy and awesome, and it was like, yes, people are having raves and doing meth and like that sort of thing, but there was still this kind of awesomeness, like the leather jacket, and we got it. Society is functioning. We know there's something wrong. We know we're in some sort of a matrix, man. But there was a feeling like this is a really strong edifice. But the edifice started to break, and I really kind of saw it after 9/11 and the response to 9/11. And then we got involved in a few wars that were just insane, didn't make any sense to me. And then I was looking at this deficit spending. So I'm looking at deficit spending. Where does that money come from? They have to print it. But not only do they print it, there's this weird private corporation called the Federal Reserve, which has the right to print the money, and then it lends it to the federal government at interest, which makes absolutely no sense. Why doesn't the government just print its own money? Right. It's because there's this group of bankers that have to make money off of it first. And then I realized, the IRS system was a way to control and hold on to everybody's lives So you're basically the collateral on loans that bankers are making to the government. And I looked at this whole system and I went, oh man, this is really weird. And it just gets weirder and weirder the more you study it. And you realize everything is upside down and it doesn't make sense. And you can't print money forever. There's this group of economists in the early 1900s, the Austrian economic school, Ludwig von Mises and Murray Rothbard, who came after him. And there was Hayek and some of these other guys. And you look and you go, oh, they were saying that runaway money printing is going to lead to some sort of a crack up boom. And first you have these massive bubbles that form and then it blows up. Oh, okay. So I'm reading that in the early 2000s. And then I get to witness the housing bubble and the absolute irrational behavior that was taking place. And I got ahead of it because I was reading guys that have been dead for a really long time.
Yep.
And I'm watching them going, this is not good, and this will not lead to a coherent working society. And there's a lot of other issues beyond the economics that will lead to the downfall of society. But I realized that it's not stable. It's not going to work. There's multiple nations operating inside of the United States. It's not a cohesive group. There's huge differences from like a northern state to a southern state or a western state in the way people think, act, and what their values are. And I realized this is,
the difference, I think, between, the states that we have now and the different regions and even, cultures inside them, and what was done when the nation was founded was that was understood, I think, in some ways, and celebrated. And the federal government was small. It wasn't meant to be, a blanket for everyone. It was meant to be, if Alabama wants to do what it wants to do, knock yourselves out. And if Kentucky wants to do what it wants to do, knock yourself out. And if New York wants to do what it wants to do, fine. And you could vote with your feet and go to these different places, and you could have, that microcosm in that place without trying to impose, there were basic understandings: freedom, liberty, right to happiness, pursuit, etc. Obviously, it was flawed then as it's flawed now. Humans are involved. It's going to be flawed. But now we're trying to shove everybody into one envelope, while also simultaneously telling everybody the thing that makes them special is the thing that makes them different from everybody in that envelope. So you have like, it can't be both. Like, we're either all in this together and we just, we celebrate the things that make us different, but we all aim toward the common goal, or we all understand that you're over there and I'm over here and that's fine. Don't bother me. I won't bother you. But I'm also not going to try and shove you into my envelope. You know what I mean? It just seems to be this dichotomy going on. So you have written a book or two other than your own books. What would you recommend? What have you read that has meant the most to you in your gardening / homesteading journey? You have out how many books now? I mean, I know you have gardening specific books, and then you have your Jack Broccoli novels and a few others. So
I think I'm up to 10, 11 gardening books.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's that. And obviously there's, go ahead.
I started writing those books in 2014, published the first one in 2015. So I've written those books just in the last 7 years. So but before that, I built the website deliberately so I could create an audience and people understood what I was doing. And I was writing articles for different magazines. Now I don't really write magazine articles anymore. It makes more sense for me to write my own books, time-wise, generally. But I probably should write them occasionally so I can get into bigger, broader markets. But I've gone from publishing my own books to also publishing other people's books. As for what has influenced me,
how would people find your publishing company? What is it called?
It's called Good Books. I've got that really great Good Books carved logo that your friend made.
Yeah.
What's his name again?
It's Tom Barron from I think it was Mouth Sweater. You can find his stuff on Mouth Sweater.
Yeah, I know. When I saw it, like the name, like how.
Yeah. I tease him constantly about it.
Weird. Mouth Sweater.
It's a mustache. So that's what your Mouth Sweater.
Okay. Wow, that's just weird. I never would have thought of that. But anyhow, I've got that great thing, and it needs to hang on the wall behind me.
Yeah.
But it's Good Books Publishing. It's goodbookspub.com. There's not a ton on the website except a list of books. But yeah, we started that this last year because my own publisher, and we just was not working. We were not getting the accounts lined up, and things were stretching out longer and longer, and it was hard for me to get data on how the books were doing and who was buying, and it was too detached. And I thought, if I could, hardly anybody can outproduce me, and if I can stay on top of what's working and what's not working and have data that is regular, then I can know, okay, I'm not going to write another book like this. But if I don't know that for an entire year, I might have spent much more time following that line that doesn't work. I need to know which things fail quickly and which things really took off quickly, and then chase the things that work and then discard the things that don't. And so starting my own publishing house was useful for that. Plus I just get more control and direct connection to people without having to go through a third party. And I had learned enough by being published by others, and I had worked with illustrators and layout people and different, those different things over the years. Proofreaders, I already had my own proofreaders. I already had my own layout person that I was working with. And I said, you know what? I'm pretty much doing all the publishing stuff already. I might as well just launch it. And then since then, we published books by John Moody and by Steve Solomon.
Excellent.
And so that's Winning the War on Weeds by John Moody, and then Water-Wise Gardening by Steve Solomon. I was very, very excited about that because I basically drew Steve out of retirement to write another book because he had written this book that had fallen into the public domain. I said, man, I want to reprint this. And he's like, David, I don't want you to reprint it. He says, you can't. I need to rewrite it, and I'm going to expand it, and I'm going to put way more data in it. And I'm like, okay, Steve, awesome. So he wrote it over like the next 5 or 6 months, and he turned this little book that he had published back in the 90s into this much more in-depth book, and we put illustrations in it.
Oh,
It's
cool.
got data on gardening without irrigation and gardening with irrigation, how to make the most effective use of the water that's on your property, how to space plants so they could survive drought conditions. And it was such great information. When I had originally read the public domain version years ago, it's like, this is just so eye-opening. This is not like anything I've read before. I didn't really realize how the plants were pulling water from the soil, or how there's this battery of water that is decreasing slowly in the soil, and how you can make best use of it. So when he said he would republish it with us, I was like, that's huge. First year publisher. I've got Steve Solomon, one of the best gardening writers in history,
Yeah.
So
That book actually is on our list. It's on our list to purchase because we have, I believe it's called sassafras soil, which is very, very good for gardening. But it's been hayed and used for millet for years and years and years. So it's been depleted a lot. So we have a good literal consistency, but the organic material and things aren't there. And we have a shallow well with not a good pump, and it's 800 feet away to my garden area. I can't garden near my house because of trees. So irrigation is going to be tricky, if not impossible, for what we're trying to do out there. And we're trying to grow enough of our own food to live, with the exception of, pepper and, some spices and things that you can't get from this climate. But yeah, so that's actually on our list of things to get for that purpose. And we don't live in a drought area. We don't live in, it's not terribly hot or terribly cold. We're on the coastal, basically Virginia. So we don't even have, I don't think our swings are as bad as yours are down there. And so,
No,
but it's still,
better.
Recharging that battery, like you said, is extremely important. So
yeah, you'll find you can grow traditional like dent corn and that sort of thing without irrigation. Particularly, you probably have a good bit of wet weather in spring. Generally, that climate there, you get it's like a wet spring, and then it goes into kind of a dry period. And sometimes late summer is dry, or do you get the rain off the ocean coming through late summer too?
It just depends. Our January has been miserably wet. I mean, it hasn't rained in 2 days, and I've got water out there still in some places, but in other places there's nothing. It just depends on where the dips and valleys and things like that are. But that ground out there that turns to mud, and it almost has like a silt top. So when people drive on it right now, they get stuck. Their wheels just spin. But in August, September, it's cracked concrete. Like you get those, like the time lapse thing where you see everything's like a puddle, and then it just goes. Oh, that's what my whole yard turns into that. So,
This
and
is
that's of
actually
course
really, this is really good that it dries at that time of year, because with the wetness, you get all of the real green growth and everything. But when it's coming towards harvest season, you don't get the corn rotting inside of the
right,
husks and the
right.
beans sprouting inside of the pods. It's drying out if you time it right, and you have, you know, it's drying down at the right time,
Just at
which
the
is
right time.
really, really useful. Really
But
useful for those.
if it happens too early or too late, you know, it's very interesting being dependent on the weather.
Yeah, it is, because you don't think about the weather normally.
No, I mean, it's not in modern life. And of course farmers do, but even most farmers, you know, are irrigating and things like that. So I should say agricultural farming, like big ag, not
Big ag, right?
not us little people trying to grow a bean. So let's switch gears. I noticed you have a what looks like a YouTube logo back there. The silver play button for, I believe that's 100,000 subscribers, and
Right.
and good content, not just all Russian bots. How
Not
did you?
anymore. We have most of them cleared out.
Yeah. I lose half my subscribers every live stream because I keep clearing out Russian bots. The what got you into YouTube? What was the start? I mean, it says, you know, when you go to your about page that you joined in 06, but I think a lot of people have made a YouTube channel and signed in and never done anything with it except watch and subscribe to stuff. So what was the catalyst to become a content creator, I think as they're called these days?
I did back in 2006. I actually started it, and I did a few comedy videos that were really dumb, and too dumb for later. Like later on, I looked at it, I was like, that's pretty embarrassing. I was in my 20s, and started it, and I had like basically the camera on my desk, and I was doing just really deadpan, weird edits, and later I just deleted those because they, you know, they weren't good, and they weren't useful. The channel became a gardening channel, and it became a gardening channel. My friend Mart told me, he said, I did a video on how long can you drive using a wood gasifier to fuel your engine, because I had a friend who had his truck with a gasifier on the back, and we just drove around off of wood fuel. And I was like, and he says, he says, I made like $50 this month off of that video. And I was like, really? And at that point, I really didn't have a ton of income. I was doing freelance radio work and writing, and things were really kind of up and down. I had a paid off house because the Lord kind of like put together multiple things at the same time so we could get a house right at the bottom. I knew the housing crash was coming. And so, and having predicted it, I followed my own advice and basically got out of almost all real estate that I had. And I had, by all real estate, I wasn't a real estate baron. I had a regular house with like a mortgage of $800 a month or something. And I sold it. I was like, I'm getting out of this house. And I just sold the house out, and we rented. And I owned one little tiny house that we rented out to a friend of ours that I had bought at the same time, because I was leveraging. I was trying to do I'm going to have a rental, and I'm going to have my own house. And so what I did was I had the mortgage on the one, and then I put a mortgage on the second one. And then as long as I was well employed, it was okay to pay both of those. And the rent was paying it on the little one. And then I started reading more and more economics, and it was like 2006. And I went, we got to get out now, because everybody's going, oh, it's going to go up forever, you know. So we got out, and I sold the one, and I kept the little tiny rental house because it was still had a renter. And he's like, please don't sell it out from underneath me. And I was like, oh, you're my friend, I won't do that. So then the economy collapsed in 2007, 2008. Things got like really, and I lost a lot of work. And then my renter got mad at me and decided he didn't want to pay the rent anymore. And he actually got mad at me because he wasn't paying the rent. And I said, dude, what is going on there? I'm like getting half of a rental payment or whatever. And he got mad, and he just abandoned the house. And I ended up having to move back to that house, and like the floor had rotted out. You helped me fix the floor.
Yeah, I remember that bathroom.
You drove over and we replaced the entire floor.
We did the floor, and I think the shower in like 18 hours. We did almost the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you were there real early in the morning, and I was still like, but so we did, all this stuff was going on, and then my friend Mark says I made $50. I was like, $50? Like, you didn't do anything, you just put a video up? He's like, yeah, and it can keep making money, like it's monetized. It's like, tell me more about this monetization thing. So at that point I realized, oh, there could be some income there, and I had done the occasional little video, here I am, and then I decided I'm going to do it seriously. But I didn't know anything about video editing or cameras or any of that stuff. And I hired a cousin to edit for me. And for a while, he edited the videos and would film and edit them. And I said, if I could just build up, I got up to about 300 subscribers. And he's like, oh, that's not bad, considering you've only done a few videos. And I was like, yeah, I did a couple of, I was trying to do this video and that video, and they didn't, it's not amounting to much. And so he said, oh, I'll help you. So I ended up hiring him to produce videos for me for a while. And then he flaked out on me totally and just blew me off on a video that I was doing because he got irritated at something. And I was like, dude, I've been paying you. Why didn't you? Well, you, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, fine. I obviously can't rely on other people. Plus, it was taking too long from the time we filmed the video to get the video out. I said, I'm just going to have to teach myself how to do video editing. And so I really got serious about trying to learn how to edit better. And then I got up to over 1,000, maybe to 2,000 subscribers doing just backyard gardening videos. And I got invited to do a couple of these summit events with Marjorie Wildcraft. That brought me a few more people. And I'm like, I had the blog going, and I was still kind of off and on. I'd do some YouTube, and then I'd be like, gosh, that's just like, it's taking so much time. I'd rather write. I'd rather do some articles. I need to do some freelance work because this is not making me much of anything. I make 10 or 20 bucks in a month and go, I got other stuff I got to do. And
it takes hours and hours and hours. Like, you have to think the video through before you film it, and then you have to film it, and then you have to film parts that maybe got messed up, and then you have to load it onto your computer, and then you have to do all the editing, make sure everything sounds good, and then upload it. I mean, each video can take, even depending on even a short 5 or 6 minute video, it could be a 6 or 7 hour investment.
It depends on how beautiful you want to make it.
Right.
I mean, that video that I did, what happens when you bury a pork chop in your garden? Scary, right? Where I get bugged by a couple of people in pig masks because I'm composting a pork chop, and interrogated and beaten in a barn tied to a chair, right? So I shot the entire thing very cinematic. That took about a week of production to make that, 10-minute long video.
Right.
Because I'm trying to get Hollywood levels rather than, hey, guess what? I'm in my garden. Hey, puppy, we're going to look at the broccoli, instead of just carrying a camera around, you're trying to make art.
Right.
And that's, but I've noticed sometimes it's the run and gun that really creates a lot of interest. And then sometimes the algorithms, who knows what they're doing? Sometimes it's a video is like, I don't even like that video. Why is that one my top video?
Yep.
It would be much better to do the yam fit video where a sister is digging yams up. Like, that one should be 1 million views, and it's like 8,000. That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
I mean, 8,000 views after 4 years, and it's really in depth and it's really funny.
Yeah. It's got music.
YouTube just built it. Who knows? So we've got I started to kind of think about it like, I'm broke. I need another income stream. So I started to push it a little more. It wasn't doing a whole lot, but it was moving a little bit. And I kind of would do it for a while and then be like, yeah, it's not working. And then I would do it for a little while, do a few more videos. It's like, it's not much happening. But people on the blog kept saying, you need to make a video of this. You need to make a video of this. And blogging was going down, but YouTube is going up. At that point, people are moving away from reading and they want to watch. And I'm personally prejudiced towards reading. I don't like to watch much YouTube. I mean, I've been watching the videos with the Kardashians, you know, it's like Sim City or something where they have the guy playing all the Kardashian sisters doing their voices, and it's, you know, the Kardashian sisters on the Titanic. That's straight up stupid, stupid entertainment. That sort of thing. Oh yeah, it does great. And that sort of thing I will watch occasionally. If it hits my fancy, I'll like watch all the way through a series or something. But a lot of the times I really don't have time to do it. I'm usually going to YouTube for information if
Yep.
I can't find it in a book or in an article. And the blog quality has gone way down. Most blogs are like written by third worlders with English as a second language now. Want to see how to change filter Dodge truck filter change. If Dodge truck filter need change, changing Dodge filter can be easy. Here we show you an article. And it's like, oh, it's so bad. So I wanted on my blog to be like really good, and I wanted people to come read it. But at the same time, people are moving to YouTube, and they're moving to YouTube, and the blogs are dying out. So, okay, all right, I'll do more YouTube. So we moved overseas, and after we moved overseas, the YouTube channel, I had about 3,200 subscribers, and Justin Rhodes writes me, he's like, dude, you should really build that channel. And I was like, can you give me a push? And he says, no, I won't give you a push unless you give me 30 videos in 30 days. If you can do 30 videos in 30 days and prove you're serious about YouTube, a video every day for 30 days, he says, then I will give you a bump. It's like, huh, okay. So I had 3,200 subscribers, was making a little bit of money. And I did this 30 videos in 30 days. And in the 30th video, it turned into Baphemus, which is about a horrifying monster that lives in the jungle. And I put Justin Rhodes' face over it. Right. So they're all gardening videos. And then the 30th day, I'm like, I can't believe we made it. 30 days. Let's go check out the garden. And then the screen goes blank and it goes into this weird like 80s horror movie of me stalking a monster through the woods that's been eating the sheep and stuff. Justin thought it was hilarious. And he gave me a bump, and I went from like 3,200 to 5,000 something in a very short period of time. Well, what? I got this thing, and then okay, I'm running. I'm going to push, and because now I've got it. I've got the momentum. I've got good, well-produced videos instead of me just walking around. I tried to really push the creativity side of it. I'm getting better at editing. I'm getting better at sound. I've got a better camera. Somebody actually gave me a camera. And that was huge. So that's what the same thing. I wanted to give you a camera because it was a big, it was a big bump for me. Sorry, my video I don't have a nice camera that goes to the autofocus. If I move out of it, it's done. I've got a webcam that's like, where are you? So anyhow, that I kind of was like stumbling into YouTube, and then after that, after I said, I'm just going to make YouTube part of my life and part of my work. And then I worked hard at it. And I wanted to make a YouTube channel that was not like the other gardening YouTube channels. A lot of talking about this and that new thing. And I wanted to make it entertaining. So if it goes on too long without a joke, I don't consider it a good video. There's got to be something in it that surprises people. And if I do clickbait titles, it's to be obnoxious.
Right.
Because a lot of, it's like it's deliberately, I have some advertising allergies. I can't stand but wait a minute, I want to talk to you about our sponsor today. Thank you so much to such and such lens company for sending me this lens. This thing, I love it. It clicks open and it clicks shut. And unlike other lenses on and you're like, skip. So I know that YouTube is running ads, but sometimes I'll just do a fake ad in there. And I know I'm making money off the ads that they run, but I still despise advertising at the same time. If I could move to a subscription model and have it work, I would probably do that. But as it is, I have a love-hate relationship. The ads are paying for my life, but the ads are so stupid. They're making the channel money, but I haven't really done much with sponsors and stuff, and that for that reason,
Right.
But anyhow, go ahead. I don't keep running forever.
No, this is good because it's what we, I've just started with the homestead, and I started the YouTube almost simultaneously, and it feels like you're almost wading into like a morass of just who knows why people click on a certain thing. How do you gain subscribers? And at this point, our channel's small. One subscriber leaves and you think, what did I do? Like, what was the why didn't you like that? I spent hours making that for you and you left. Where did you? So what would you recommend to people who are either thinking about it, starting a channel, or who have just started a channel, or maybe they're at that point where you're like, I've been doing this for a while, it's not taking off. What would you tell them? Like maybe some tips in how to gain and or keep subscribers, or how to just not be discouraged? What would you say to people?
First of all, I would say that YouTube is not a great revenue source. It is not necessarily for everyone. If people naturally want to talk to you and follow you around and see what you're doing, if you already have a personality that people are interested in, I have an abundance of personality, and you do as well. But there are some people that send me, would you check out my channel? And I'll look at their channel. Hi, we are out in the field right now. Oh, hey, cow. Hi, cow. That's our cow. Our cow has a lot of meat. And you're watching and you're like, if you're a boring person, you better have really good information and keep yourself on a script. If you know that you're not naturally able to draw an audience in, I've had the ability since I was younger to simply enter the room and either offend people or draw people in. I mean, you remember we used to go to parties and stuff, and you and I would just mess with girls' heads. Right? Like I would be in the middle of a conversation with a girl saying something ridiculous, and then you would come in and exactly like back up what I was saying, and then just like, and you could just see their eyes like, I can't, like, it's like a train wreck. I can't look away. These brothers, it's like we have no idea.
We used to run into
really
rooms and just poke people to see what would happen. Like not literally, but just, I wonder what makes
Right.
this person tick. Let's throw random nonsense at them and see how they respond. And then when they got we either weirded out or they thought it was hysterical. And either way, we got a reaction. And it was fun.
Right. And you find that that people want to be around you and follow you because there's a sense of playfulness and it's amusing. Right. One of the one of the best pieces of advice I ever read was, if I'm going to keep going talking to girls, right? If you go up to a girl and you say, I just want you to know your eyes are really pretty. They're like, security, right? But if you're like, you look at her and you're like, is that a wig? She'll be like, what? What do you mean? Never mind. My aunt had one like that. And it's like, so now you've just broken through what they're used to, what somebody is used to. When you're talking to anybody, it doesn't mean it's just girls, but if they're not surprised, if they can predict what the end of your sentence is, they drift off. This is why pastors tell jokes. Now I remember there was that one speaker at Word of Life, and instead of breaking up his talks with something interesting, he would go like make noise. He would make noise to break. So everybody's like, oh, what? That's not the best way to do it. That's kind of obnoxious. But you have to surprise the area of the brain that is pattern recognizing and filling it in. Today we're going to go and take a look at oh my gosh!
Right.
There's, like, what is he looking at? No, never mind. It's okay. I didn't expect to see that over there. What do we see? Okay, now you've got a story going in the person's head. You ask the girl why she's wearing a wig. She's like, particularly if she's pretty, right? she's pretty. She's used to hearing the same stupid stuff. You're so pretty. Your hair is so pretty. You have such pretty eyes. Are you free later? And the shield goes up. And she's going to dismiss you. I'm not interested. Please stop talking to me. Oh, that guy is so creepy. The guy isn't necessarily creepy.
Right.
Like another guy might, that guy's not creepy. He's boring, and that's worse.
Right. Well, so I think that's part of why they
So
say, like, whenever it's a, what is a girl looking for in a man? Like the first thing is always, you know, a sense of humor, a sense of humor. That's a lie. It's not true. They're looking for security, right? Security first. That's why the big dumb jock is typically looked at first, not because he's big, tall, and handsome, but they think he's 6'2" and a wall of muscle. I'm safe with him.
Yes, and it's also
you have to get through. If you're not a 6 foot,
go out with that. Why would you go out with him? He's a jerk.
Yeah.
Yes, but he's a strong jerk.
Yes.
Right.
So,
like the kind of guy that will just grab the other guy by the head and push him out of the way. That
right.
person will protect you and your children. Hopefully, he may beat
right.
you occasionally, but
you know, it's the price you pay.
You know.
But if you're not the 6'2", you know, jock, so the jock is almost the thumbnail for YouTube, right? That's what the clickbait. That's what the thing is. It's the, you know, I went to start a garden and this fire happened, and you're like, what? Well, how did you start a fire with the garden? Click, you know, that kind of thing. That's why people do the clickbaity thing. But the backside of that is somewhere is the security, right? So the interest is the thing that people are looking for. They're looking for something interesting. They say it's clickbaity or the title or the and there is something to the algorithm, but it has to be interesting.
Yes, and if it's not, if you are a subject matter expert, it doesn't mean that you're going to be interesting as well. So I was one fellow asked me about his YouTube channel. He did something unrelated to what I do, and he said, "What would you do?" And I said, "Well, you are a natural teacher, but you are not particularly funny, and you don't." I said, I wouldn't say you're the type of person that draws in a big audience." And he's like, no, not really. I said, okay, you're the brother that I go to ask for information about this topic. I said, you're my friend. I said, you're not necessarily a big entertainer. I said, if you do all these videos like, oh, in the thumbnail, I said, it doesn't work. I said, you are a thoughtful, down-to-earth guy, and you are a subject matter expert. You've been awarded in your field. You're excellent in your field. You teach in your field. You know all the information that people need to do excellently. I said, I would just present the information like you're showing your brother how to do it, and skip the trying to be a personality. You're just a guy that really knows how to do it. And I said, and cut out all the boring stuff in between. Don't spend too much time on one camera angle. Don't just get rambling about the topic and going on for a long time. I said, make it tight, put the information across. If you can't do it on personality, do it on the information that people need. Some people cannot do it on personality. And you'll notice, I mean, if you read my writing, it's funny, but it's there's a lot of, I do a lot of research. I'll read complicated stuff and then distill it down into an easy to understand package and then try to get people information. People don't read a book on survival gardening necessarily to be entertained. They want it for the knowledge.
Right.
However, people often watch YouTube to be entertained, and the knowledge is part of it too. So you notice on YouTube, I'm much more ridiculous. But if you read one of my books, you'll say, oh gosh, this guy actually knows what he's talking about.
Right.
I realize I'm stronger on the personality side than if I just talk and give a whole bunch of information. You know, it's got to be a combination of both. If you're just a joker, you might as well have a comedy channel. Right. But if people don't really laugh at your jokes, don't do that either. I've met people that think they're comedians, and that's really painful. If you think you're a comedian, I mean, just please ask some impartial people, am I actually funny? Because you may not be.
I remember one of Jerry Seinfeld, he was talking in something, I don't remember what it was, but they asked him to come speak at a comedy class. And he said, why? If they're in a class, they'll never be funny. Like you don't teach somebody. There are things you obviously can learn and you can pass on things, but if you're not out there making comedy, if you're not out there doing stand up and failing at it and, you know, having your stuff bomb, a class isn't going to fix it. So he basically went into the class and said, none of you should be here and save your money and leave. You'll never be successful, and walked out. But he says that, you know, the only people he really talks to are people reaching for a joke. You know, that's because he's a comedian. So the people he talks to, that's what they're doing. So I think with YouTube, it's almost similar. You know, if you're not out there doing it, you're going to learn as you're doing it. And there's tips and tricks and stuff, but you need to be doing it.
Right. And if you're legitimately good at something and you can show it, not talk about it, but show it, YouTube is really good for showing. If you can lecture on it, that's fine, but it's not as good as, we're going to pull this engine apart.
Yeah.
And I want you to see piece by piece how we put a new fuel filter in. That makes a big difference, rather than I'm going to explain to you my thoughts on fuel filters. My fuel filter did what? You know, you better show.
Can you run your car without a fuel filter? No.
Yeah, edit.
But here's the rest of the video.
Yeah, exactly. Edit mercilessly and take out everything that is not entertaining. Unless you'll see, sometimes I'll do a really long, painful shot deliberately, like an independent film, where it's like a long shot of me walking up to the camera, because even that is a surprise on YouTube when things are like this, and there's this really long shot of a guy walking up to the camera. It's sort of like, what's going to happen? You have to always make people think, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Well, and what makes you different from the other like 50,000 homesteaders in your area? If you try to reach everybody, I'm going to do a homesteading channel for the entire world. Not as good. I'll tell you, my very best sales are on books for Florida gardeners. One region, one state, one type of soil for the most part. And that regional thing, say you're starting a YouTube channel in Georgia, call yourself the Georgia Backyard Gardener. Don't be like Universe World Gardening, you know, or whatever, because you'll pick up this huge regional following much faster if it's Georgia gardening tips. How to garden in Georgia. My Georgia garden produced 1,000 pounds of food, right? So you've got something that's regional where people connect to you. Like, oh, that is the Georgia gardener. You don't want to be one of those homestead guys, because you're already way outmatched by a bunch of people that have been doing this forever. Whoa, where do you find your niche? If you could find your niche and plug into it and just keep running on it, and don't make your station My Georgia Gardening and Model Trains. You know? Yeah. It's Georgia Gardening. That's your thing. You are the Georgia gardener. And until you know, it makes a big difference. And I didn't learn it until later. I scattered videos all over the place doing all kinds of stuff. I have over 1,000 videos. Many of them get almost 0 views, even though I thought they were pretty good videos when they came out. They hit a certain point and they just go sideways forever. Yep. So sometimes the niche is really, really important. I did a lot of videos on plant propagation, which did quite well for me. But I also wrote a book on plant propagation. So now those videos sell the book on plant propagation. So I've got another tie into it and not just counting on YouTube. Right.
Well, I think that is all excellent advice for people who have been doing it for, 5 minutes or 5 years. I think all the basic principles apply, because even one of the things successful people have in common, regardless of what they're doing, is a constant reevaluation of what they're doing, what works, what isn't working anymore, what might have been working isn't working, what wasn't working now is working, and being able to adjust to it and put in strategies. So, well, where can people find you in your various places? Are you on anything else other than YouTube, or is that your any other social media?
I don't do much social media. I despise Facebook. I think TikTok has made me wonder if God should have actually created man. Twitter convinced me that he shouldn't have. But no, I mean, I don't really like social media that much. And I found that I already get so many points of contact from people writing me emails and that sort of thing. I just can't handle it.
Right.
Maybe if you're starting out, it might make sense. But I think you should be on alternative media as well. Minds, Gab, Brighteon, Odyssey, whatever. Like, spread yourself out. Vimeo, just put yourself all over the place if you can. So you, in case the YouTube thing collapses at some point, don't make it your entire life. Make sure you have other stuff going on too, because you just never know. Things don't last forever. What looks like a really sure bet, like in the lead up to the housing, hey, 50% increase on that house over a year, that's going to be, I'm going to be a bazillionaire in another year. And then in another year, your house is worth half. You have to spread it out. I really appreciate YouTube and the reach that it has given me and how many great subscribers and stuff I've got, but I can't count on it for everything forever and ever. So, you know, keep a bunch of irons in fire and be ready to jump anytime that you feel like you're off. And one more thing I wanted to say about YouTube production. 90% of people really don't have the self-discipline to do what needs to be done to be successful. Most people, I would say, are motivated by fear. I'm motivated by the fear of not being able to pay my rent. So therefore I work for my boss and I do my best and I shut up and I don't complain and I do whatever. But then you get home and you watch TV and you don't work on your own stuff. You're not motivated by the potential of future income and getting something amazing done. So many people have said, I want to write a book. I said, okay, why don't you start writing a book? I'm not sure where to start. Okay, I'll help you write an outline. What are you interested in? Here's a topic. Let's write an outline, just like in school.
Right.
Or write an outline for it. And then you write a few hundred words every day until it's done. In about 4 or 5 months, you can have a book done. Almost invariably, people don't do it.
Right.
Because concerted effort over time is not something that people do. That's why, you know, I have people tell me, I'm going to go keto and I'm going to lose this extra weight. You look so much healthier than I do. And you're older than me, but I can't lose it. I said, oh, I lost the weight and I kept it off. I've been fit for years now and I feel good. And they're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then like 3 days later, well, it was a birthday party. And I figured, you know, I was going to have some ice cream with the kids. Then you don't want it.
Yeah.
You have to work at it like it's your job. You have to, they're motivated by this idea of being fit, but it's not enough. Often people don't really get fit until they get cancer or something.
Oh yeah, life scare.
Then it's suddenly like, right, I'm gonna die. As people, I mean, how many times people split up from their wives or husbands and suddenly they go and get fit? I knew this woman that was obese and then she split from her husband and suddenly she's on the dating market again. Guess what? She lost like 60 pounds. Her ex-husband's like, dang, I don't know if we would have broke up if she looked like that before. That's the wrong way to do it. If you really want to succeed at YouTube, if you want to succeed at homesteading or whatever else, it better be concerted effort over time. I didn't write all these books by just thinking about titles and talking about it with my friends and then watching Netflix.
Right.
You have to actually sit down and write, and it has to be, this is the thing that I am going to do. Everybody leave me alone for a while. I'm going to just lock myself into a room and I'm going to write until my 1,000 words are done for the day. And then I'm going to do the same thing tomorrow and the day after and the day after. And after 60 days, I have a 60,000 word book.
I think also there's a difference between like if you were doing YouTube for fun, just having a good time uploading videos, that's great. That's like having backyard chickens or a backyard garden. You're just out there messing around. You know, if they do well, great. If they die, it doesn't really matter. It's not your life. It's not the end of the world. So if you're doing that and you're having a good time, knock yourself out. But we were outside last night from like 7:30 at night to 9:30 in the dark with headlamps and like flashlights, 2 tractors going, because the chickens go to bed at night. So they're in the coop. We moved the coop. We took down all the netting. We put the netting up because if those chickens go, I'm in a bad way. eventually. Like I
Yeah.
still have food and income and things, but we're trying to like sustainably live off of your own stuff. That takes a whole different level of effort than just having 6 chickens in your backyard for fun, having 45 birds, you know, and in one place and 50 in another, because you're trying to live off of this thing. So if you know, if you want the YouTube or authoring books or even a small business to succeed, it has to basically consume you. And there is no, you know, I mean, I could have left the birds in there overnight. They'd have been fine and moved it first thing in the morning, but I ended up getting up first thing this morning and getting something else done on the property because I did it
Right.
last night instead of sitting in the chair for 2 hours. Right. After working all day, you know, it wasn't the only thing I did that day was I got off the couch at 7:30 at night and went and did it. You know, it was an all day thing. And my wife's out there and we got 2 tractors going. She's made dinner and educated children and done all this stuff all day long. And instead of sitting down on the couch and playing video games or watching a movie, you know, you're outside with headlamps and running stuff over. And so
Right.
I think you need that same type of drive for YouTube or whatever it is that you want to be successful in.
Yeah, and you have to you can't blame other people. You have to blame yourself. If you didn't get it done, well, pick yourself up and do it, and don't stop doing it. So all I have to say, yeah, I guess, you know, you can follow my channel and see what I do. I'm David the Good on YouTube. You can read my blog and see I've got over 2,500 posts. I made the blog successful by telling myself I was going to post. I post every day. Now I just post every weekday, but that's still 5 days a week.
Right.
And what over, you just keep going and going and going. And so you can find the blog is thesurvivalgardener.com. And those are pretty much the 2 points where you can reach me. You can find my books also on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and other places will carry my books too. You just generally have to ask for them. You know, if you don't want to use Amazon, you can go to Barnes and Noble and say, could you get this book for me? They'll get it for you. It's all, everything is internationally distributed if they don't have it already.
Well, David the Good, thank you for your time today and breaking away from writing thousands and thousands of words and filming thousands and thousands of videos and ignoring your almost dozen children for us for an hour or so. And I look forward to talking to you again in the future. And I hope you have all the success in the world and continue to grow.
All right. Love you, brother.
Love you too. May your thumb always be green.